we start off on our back. And our goal is to switch from our back to one side of our body, onto our back, to the other side. And at the same time as we do this, we will be sliding our feet on the ground with our dominant top leg coming around the perimeter and the bottom leg sliding down and through. And then we reverse that action, scissoring them, arriving back onto our back and changing onto the opposite side with the opposite leg now dominant and sliding around, and the opposite leg being inferior and sliding under. Now the key to the bicycle is that first and foremost, it begins with the hips. So a very simple warm-up exercise is to begin on our back with our feet relatively tethered to the same spot, and to feel that we don't need to push off of our feet, but rather we can rock without hands or legs from side to side by virtue of the spinal engine. I then see that I can slide my dominant leg around. And the only goal of sliding the dominant leg around is to keep it on the floor. Once that action becomes comfortable, of bringing the knee up, I look also at the elasticity in the leg. When the leg comes up to its peak, it bounces back down. So now rather than being fully muscular, which is what it would be to be in the air, to float, rather than being only muscle driven, now I'm using the recoil of that leg to spark the next phase of the motion. The knee helps spark a reactive breath, helps plunge the air passively out of my body. The third reason we want to bring that leg up and on the ground is to maximize our defensibility, make us the hardest possible target. As we've already said, the direct application of the bicycle motion can be seen in low-profile work, particularly in live shooting environments, as often used by the military. We also reference rape defense or being pinned up against a wall or an object. Also, the movement as a ground mobility exercise in combat is equally applicable if we're in an environment where there are 3 or 4 people trying to stomp us. Sometimes having the feet up and helicoptering with the legs can provide deflections and counter hits, but very often they leave us extremely vulnerable with the groin being open, and they cause us to sort of delay in one spot and stay rather centered. Whereas the bicycle is usually used in a quick way to help us move out and get up to a different point in our kinetic chain. But yet another application of the bicycle can be seen in kicking. When I'm on the ground, very often the tendency for people is to kick with a very high leg, bringing the leg off the ground and launching. And that's fine, but there's a lot of muscularity involved in that because that leg has to be lifted up against gravity and driven over, held in that sort of that position. It takes a lot more energy than delivering it from a bicycle. In a bicycle position, I use the natural power of my hips and I slide it around until the last moment when I launch it. I'll usually kick a lower profile target, and as I kick, aside from just using the power of that single leg, I can also thread my other leg under in a scissor, so I'm in effect on the verge of falling when I hit. That'll give you more of a triangulated 45-degree chop into the low leg. So I can use this to load it. It's an extremely strong kick. A similar variation can be trained solo without an object, just using a focus mitt, where I can practice seeing that same motion can be delivered into a knee. There are values and times when knees do want to lift and rotate like a circular knee, but very often when we're on the ground, the simplest motion is to just bicycle over and to smash that knee in. And often I'll arrive with the hit barely having lifted my foot off the ground at all. So this very simple drill massively improves the efficiency of your knees on the ground and will apply directly to your knees standing. A final consideration to think of is that the bicycle in its own right, with all of these transition of a dominant leg around the inferior leg, is very much akin to all of the Cossack leg work that we did before, which is fundamentally a dominant leg spinning around that support leg. And very often from that bicycle, as we start to explore it and we move into the star, we'll see that the motion at any point can lead us up into a shin box, or we can continue the chain up into a hunter squat, or we could just feed into any motion that feels natural. So the bicycle is an important link in the overall chain of ground mobility, and one that teaches us also to open the body for maximum breathing and close for maximum protection.